The July 13th meeting of the Carleton School District Board of Directors is called to order. Dr. Mandich, you haven't done the pledge in a couple of weeks. Would you mind?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Director Hunchard?
Here.
Director Frank?
He's not able to be here tonight.
Director Apple?
Here.
Director Fishkar?
Here.
Director O'Brien?
Here.
Director Mendoza?
She's not able to be here tonight.
Director Zaletsky?
Here.
Director Simsick?
She's not able to be here tonight.
Director Driver?
Here. So there's a time at the beginning of each meeting where we invite the public to comment on any items that are on agenda for tonight. I'm guessing that some of the comments, and actually I've seen people sign up to comment on one agenda item in particular, the masking and the health and safety plan. Our superintendent has a presentation, and we would like to save those comments and those questions until after he's got a chance to present his latest health and safety plan. So we're hoping you can save your questions for a few minutes, and then you get a chance to ask them. So, Dr. Krager.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schreiber. We do have an administrative report also from Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is going to give us a technology update. And so, Mr. Jones, I'll turn things over to you, and then I'll provide my superintendent report when you're finished.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Prater. Yeah, so technology in the past, it's really almost 2 years now. It's been a while since I've been up in front of you all. But it's been a little crazy, the pandemic and now. So a lot of what I tell you is going to be, pandemic related, but, we did have the opportunity to really update some things, and some things not until really to the end of the school year. And, I wish I could have got some newer Chromebooks out for Reese, but unfortunately, sorry, Reese. We were a little bit tied there. But anyway, so we were able to deploy Chromebooks, obviously one-to-one, to all of our students. The total devices issued actually was a little higher than the number of students we have, actually about around 300, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So the total devices that were issued were 1,633 devices throughout the time. And that disparity really comes from the broken devices. And that can vary between people that dropped the Chromebook and it broke into 1,000 pieces to a couple keys fell off and we weren't able to replace them. So, that kind of stuff happened. But that was around 210, give or take. So not really that bad. In talking with some other school districts, we kind of fall into pretty close to what other people see. The nice thing is we did have the option for parents to buy insurance, so that allowed us to be able to replace those things really without any additional costs to the district. Unfortunately, a lot of the devices that ended up breaking were not of people that had insurance, so then we had to send out bills and things like that. But so that is that. I think we did a really great job passing those out. Obviously, there are going to be some hiccups, no matter what process you do. But I think it really speaks to my staff and their ability to really come together cohesively and get that stuff out. And really all the administrators too, because when we've been passing out, Dr. Kreider was down there, the principals and everybody. So we really came together as a group to really get those out. And I think moving forward that'll be great. So since the start of the pandemic, we've purchased 650 new Chromebooks using different grants out there. So we had 250 that we were able to purchase in April. So right basically after into that March area, right after the pandemic started, we were able to get a quick order in. But after that, we had ordered 400 more Chromebooks to fill in all of the kind of the gaps that we had. We still had quite a few students that really didn't have a Chromebook. And unfortunately, at that time, Lenovo had two different problems going on. One, they had a little issue at a manufacturing facility. The government, our government, put a sanction on them, so they had to switch manufacturers. And obviously the pandemic. So we didn't receive those until after the new year. And at that point, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense to switch them out, and then we would use them, in this coming school year, and get rid of all of those devices that we actually had to go out and purchase secondhand, which, they weren't the best in the world, by any stretch of the imagination, but I think they were sufficient for, what we had to do at the time. So moving forward, I think we'll be in a lot better position now. But the continued distribution of Chromebooks, moving into next year, we have a plan together on what that's going to look like. So again, everyone will receive Chromebooks. It'll just look different in each building. K to 3 most likely is going to be cart-based, and then moving forward at 3 to 7, well, you get your first Chromebook in 3rd grade, and you have to kind of keep it nice until the end of your 7th grade year, and then you're reissued that in 8th grade, and you keep that to your senior year. That keeps within that 5-year cycle, which is the general Google update parameters. You can get some that are a little bit further out, but 5 years is a general how long you can keep them until they cut off your updates. So that starts us in a nice cycle. Something I was just talking to you about are access points. With E-Rate, we did kind of like a 2-year span E-Rate. So we had Aerohive before, and so we put out a bid for all different kinds of stuff between Aerohive and Alcatel-Lucent and those kind of things. Now all of our network infrastructure is Alcatel-Lucent, and they ended up coming in with a really good price. And so we did go with Alcatel-Lucent, and so we had monies that were given to us by the federal government for the 2020 funding year, and that paid for basically both elementary buildings and some of the high school. And with that, we weren't going to go through with an update, because then you couldn't update them all at the same time, and then it's not good. So we waited until funding year 2021, where we were then able to finish off the high school and get really all that we needed. Unfortunately, when you do that, you have to wait quite a bit of time, because the funding is not released until later. So actually the access points that we put in only were here for a couple of weeks before the end of the school year. But even that, I saw definitely vast improvements, generally. So I look forward to working a little bit more with that system and really getting the most out of it. And I don't know if you really care to know what they are, but they're Alcatel-Lucent Omni Access Stellar indoor access points, and they are 5 gigahertz, 2.4 gigahertz, and 4x4 and 2x2 respectively. So the high school got 80 access points, and both elementaries 30. So that's going to be an access point in every classroom, and then some areas that we have, maybe some spottiness. Not that there's a whole lot of that. I think when the Aerohive access points were put in, there was some heat mapping, and I think you were involved in that too. And so for the most part, actually had very good coverage. So it was pretty easy to just go replace the ones where they were, and then where we saw some issues, we filled them in. So that was good. And they were able to do both elementaries in one day and then the high school in one day. We just took 9 days. Perfect days to do them. So that's for that. We also deployed wireless hotspots for 28 students throughout the school year. It dropped, fluctuated, just kind of depended on, some got wireless at home, they gave us our devices back. But so 28 total, and that was a cost to us. T-Mobile had a deal. We ended up spending, it was about $15 a device a month. That was unlimited data, which honestly, with as much video content as our staff was able to put out, the free plan, it was 100 gigs a year. So that works out, for our school year, about 10 gigs a month, which just really isn't enough, for all of the different resources they need. So unfortunately, as much as it's nice to have free, we just, we kind of had to kind of do that. But like I said, we waned and gained, and so. But that was great partnering with them. We started out with Sprint, and then as T-Mobile bought Sprint, we just kind of migrated over in the whole bit. Another thing here, Promethean boards. We purchased 32 Promethean boards. We do have, that's about half of what we want to get, but moving forward, we will get those. So this original, this 32, hopefully will be coming in by the end of this month, though I was telling some of them there's a glass shortage, and so that's causing some delays, not to mention chip shortages and all the other things. So hopefully, with any luck, we'll have those by the end of the month, and then we're going to be really working to get them put in. But that'll be great, working with Dr. Kreider and the other administrators to get some professional development together and to really make sure that our staff can use it. And it's also great, we're starting with half. Hopefully, those teachers, after some of that professional development, will really, take hold of that new technology and really be able to help their peers as we bring in new technology as well. So I really look forward to working with the staff and getting that to happen. Also, those boards were funds for a couple of different grants, and then some of the money which you guys had set aside for technology as well. So. And some other things that we deployed over this year. And Jude's not here, but if he was, we really tried to take a stance on kind of cybersecurity for staff, at least rolling out. I hope to do that with students maybe this year. Really try to work that into some kind of curriculum. But just email general, phishing. And so I have some of the statistics from that. We started out the industry standard for phishing attacks and people that are prone to them is 16.9%. And at the beginning of our campaigns, we were at 42.5%. And so that we sent out 270 emails, 54 of those emails were clicked on, there was one reply, and there was 33 people that entered information. Obviously, that is a major problem, and there's really nothing you can do with that. In any kind of security, it comes down to the person themselves. You can have whatever you want. If someone leaves a door open, well, there you go. Same instance here. But happily, I was able to see that over the months we really, have been doing good, and we are way under the average now with 5.4%. So we're continually getting better. And with that, when they click on something or download something, it makes them take a training, right? You got to take this training. And I do hear from people that take the training, like, oh, I didn't know that I learned something, or they're like, Josh, is this another one of your scams? You keep sending me scams, and I'm like, honestly, I don't even know, because you set this up, and there's like hundreds of different styles of emails they'll send FedEx, UPS, whatever. I mean, I've been close to myself, like, oh, I do have something from FedEx coming, and if this isn't right, click on the thing, and you're like, no, that's not. But, so they're very good. They're very realistic, and that's great. And that's just one, small piece of, cybersecurity that, we need to be cognizant of, and it's one of the most easy ways that hackers get information. It's just those phishing emails.
I can tell you that your learning curve is a heck of a lot better than the learning curve in our law firm. They are continually still clicking on everything. Like, it's not an upward, downward curve for us at all. It's clicking. Everybody's clicking.
Yeah.
So teachers are trainable. Lawyers apparently are not.
Josh, you're well educated.
So yeah. Anyway, but that's it's really great to see that, and I always, every once in a while, depending if we get some people that click off, and I'll sometimes call them. Maybe just don't open emails anymore. Just don't open. If someone emails, you just call them. Make sure it's good. That may be the way to go. So some of the other stuff that we saw during the pandemic, is content filtering for the students. And that was another thing that I talked to. I think I may have talked to you a little bit about it, but Jude was really, we had a meeting, and we really did notice that there were some things that we really needed to take a hard look at. And at the time, SIPA compliance, which if anyone knows about E-rate, you must certify that you are going to follow the SIPA guidelines. And at the time, it only said, you only have to care about the things that are in your building. Well, we have a firewall and a content filter here, and that's all fine and dandy. But once they leave, well, you don't have that anymore. And at the time, it didn't matter. Now they've actually changed the SIPA compliance where it does matter now, but at the time it didn't. And so we saw that students were unfortunately able to access some things that were not so great. And so we took measures to fix that, right? We purchased a program called GoGuardian, and we also have Impero, which does our logging and stuff, and we actually didn't have that in 2019 when I started, but we did purchase that and are now able to track a whole lot of what happens, which is good. You need to be able to do that. And so between Impero and GoGuardian, we were really able to suppress all of that stuff. And really, are you ever going to stop everything unless you just take access away? You can't use anything. No. But we saw a very sharp decline in those instances and those incidents. And then if we did have them, then you would deal with them accordingly. But it's one of those things. We have to be right 100% of the time, all the time, and they only have to be right once. So we definitely have really tried really hard to really make sure that all of our internet traffic is education related. And we did some stuff during the school year. I know that didn't make students happy because I read it. But that's okay. At the end of the day, our job is to educate them and not to make playtime fun. So, but that was that. Obviously, PowerSchool was released, and we have been working on that kind of year prior. But this year is when it fully took place. And with any student information system or any information system or system at all, there's always growing pains. And for a student information system, generally it's like a 2-year, just a very, very painful process. I spend most of my day dealing with PowerSchool problems. But hopefully, we'll get better there. And I would say PowerSchool, it's a great program. We were able to release at the end, more toward the end of the school year, once we were able to provide live grades to parents and students. And so they got to see a little bit what that looks like. And it's never ending, really, the things that it's capable of doing. So I look forward to continuing to open different avenues and different things just with that student information system alone. Actually, it was a little bit cheaper than what we were using before as well. And PowerSchool owns eSchool, and the whole real reason why we were even switching over to begin with was they couldn't say how long eSchool was going to be around, and you're going to have to pay for upgrades and the whole thing. Like, there's just no point in doing that, so we'll just switch. So, like I said, there's still growing pains, and some of you as parents may have noticed them or heard whatever, and probably true. But we will work through them and try to fix whatever we have. But that's PowerSchool for you. And then just moving forward, right? We're going to continue to update our network infrastructure. I think we've done a really good job. We have a new SAN. We have a lot of new switches. We just did our access points. But some of the things, looking forward, would be maybe adding some additional individual distribution frames or IDFs to take a little bit of the strain. I mean, we have some really long runs, way over what is the industry standard, and just allowing us to build out for the future. I mean, I don't see this building going anywhere for a while, or really any of the buildings going anywhere for a while. So I think it would be smart to really start to look at what is the network landscape going to look like, or what is the technology landscape going to look like 10 years from now. And I don't think we're going to lose any reliance on technology. I think we're only going to gain it. So trying to, let's say, future-proof, but kind of really look at what we need to do to make sure that we are ready for the years and start budgeting for them accordingly. And with Keith and Dr. Kreider, it's been pretty easy to do that. We see things down the line and getting our strategic plans together. So that's good. Yeah, obviously the replacement plans for computers and Chromebooks, I kind of touched upon that at the beginning with the Chromebooks, the 7th grade and 12th grade and that whole, or 3rd grade, and I should say 3rd get new devices. So that's kind of starts the cycle. And then just replacement cycles for teacher devices, right? We had a lease. We just made our last payment on that. It's a lease to own, so we're at 4 years on these devices. We'll get a couple of more years out of them. But we'll need to start budgeting for that. That coming up, they will need replaced, and we'll have some different looks at what that may look like, especially with the meeting boards are wireless and able to just connect from device to that without any wires. Also talking about network infrastructure, it's a lot of wireless and a lot of network usage. So something that we're looking at, and also even just having caught load balance or failover. We did have not very many issues. DQE is pretty good, and they're our provider of dark fiber. But we did have some issues, and having something to fall back on is something as we look into just like different emergency planning, maybe something that we'll look into moving in the future. But those are things that we're thinking about, and obviously those additional Promethean boards to finish out. We sent out a survey, and that's, I don't think I mentioned how we came up with the numbers, but we had sent out a survey asking teachers, if this opportunity was presented to you, to get these Promethean boards, and would you want one? Would you use it? All of those things. And it's my hope that eventually, all of the teachers are, wanting that. But that takes money, and it also takes professional development, and it takes other teachers really showing their fellow employees what they can do and how they can diversify things. And so I think as we put those in, more people will say, oh, I didn't realize they could do that. I want one, and that's great. I think using technology to our advantage, and using that to really supplement the education we provide students is really important. So, that's one step, I think, in the right direction. And Dr. Kreider and everyone has been so great in showing that vision. And so I hope that we can continue to push forward, and as new things come out, that we can, I wouldn't say hope to be on the cutting edge, but at least close, to being able to provide our students with a good experience, and one that has, technology involved. So that's all I have. If you have any questions, I can take them.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah.
Really, it's been a lot of work and a lot of challenges to get through over the last year and a half or so. And you guys have done a great job. I did have a question about, I'm not sure, did we provide any technology to St. Philip's School? Because, they're...
Yes.
Yeah,
So that goes kind of through Lisa Rowley. And yeah, we do provide technology to them. St. Philip's, I think that's the one that's closing down. Yeah. We actually went down, myself and our summer helper, Andrew.
Yeah.
We went down and got some of that equipment.
Okay.
But yeah, we've been
That's what I
kind of
was gonna say.
taking it back. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you. Yeah, my staff is great, and I firmly believe that you're nothing without the people that you work with and work for you, and that is very true. They keep me in line.
But Josh, you're doing a great job.
Quick question.
Yes.
You mentioned a new Wi-Fi system.
Yes.
For the benefit of our board who occasionally uses it, and people in the public who might want to use it, what's the process for guest access to get the
Yeah.
Wi-Fi?
So that's great. Yeah. So if you click on CSD Guest, you'll see a username.
What's CSD Guest?
Oh, CSD Guest. Well, it's the SSID, but that is the Wi-Fi network.
So if you
John,
hold your phone.
slow down.
Yeah, hey, just click on the thing and you go, and it's yeah, no. If you go into your settings, you go to Wi-Fi, you'll see a couple of different things. You'll see CSD Guest, and there's some other things that don't really pertain to other people. But CSD Guest is what you would use, and you click there, and it'll take you to a portal to log in or create an account. You'd need to create an account, so there's a little space right at the end of where you would put a password, right to the right-hand side that says create an account. And so you just set up that account. You're going to provide some information, and the information that you're providing is more so that, we don't just have any person connecting to the, the wireless, and that there's a little bit of accountability there. We don't leave it open for our students, so we're really not going to leave it open for people we don't know. So you provide that information, and then you'll have a login for the next time you're here, and then you can just put in your login, and you're connected to the network. And that's something I didn't mention, was that we are looking to provide a little bit more wireless access for outside, like at the field and things for different events. And so that's something that's kind of in the works and we're talking about too. I know that was something that was important to you when I first started, and you had mentioned it, and we never really connected about it, but it is something that is good. And when we have events, it's very positive to be able to just provide a little bit of internet access and that kind of thing. So there's stuff that we're looking at.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Anybody else? Okay. Well, great. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Yep, Mr. Jones, thank you.
Yep.
I'll echo the comments of some of the directors here as far as your capacity and your leadership in the technology department. I think it's been outstanding. I think a lot of the report that you just heard here this evening goes beyond just what you dealt with through dealing with the COVID pandemic and getting computers out and getting things working and up and running and maintaining all of our systems. The majority of your report went well beyond that as far as just our infrastructure and keeping that. And I think if any of you know Mr. Jones, he's a different type of computer tech. He's not the kind that you see on Saturday Night Live. If you're of that age, it's the old skits of the computer tech guy just comes in and says, move. Josh, he's very hands-on, he's very instructional, he's very supportive of our staff. So to you and your team, thank you for this past year. You've done a tremendous job, so thank you. So at this time, if you could pull up the presentation, I'd appreciate it. And I don't know if you're able to turn the screen just a little bit so that, yeah. That should work a little bit there. Maybe not the whole way, so some of the work. There you go. That works good.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I don't know if anybody early computers.
George, here. George, you want?
Yeah.
You have to use you.
Or, I wish I had more space with the HDMI cable. I don't.
Okay. You were able to click in advance?
Yep.
Yep, all right, go ahead. Okay, so just as far as the health and safety plan, as a requirement of the American Rescue Plan and also as a requirement of the United States Department of Education, the school district, very similar to last year, is required to develop a health and safety plan for school districts across the United States. Very similar to what we developed last year. There was a template that was provided to develop the health and safety plan. So the survey that was sent out, when you received the survey, there was also the copy of the document to that. The document is set up as a template from PDE, actually, to provide that information in there. So the data that it asked us to collect there was very basic as far as how does the district plan to implement the mitigation strategies, how the district plans to address masking policies, address ventilation, address cleaning and sanitizing, hygiene and other types of issues. So as you reviewed that document, the flow of the document went through and addressed each of those issues. The next slide talks a little bit about the health and safety plan in itself as far as being on tonight's agenda. When the plan was first developed, what we were asked to do was develop that plan that was aligned to the CDC's most recent, most current recommendations. The most current recommendations that we had at that time were from May 15th. So as you can imagine, the May 15th guidelines were much more restrictive than what is currently in place. In the process of pushing out the survey, developing the plan, the CDC, as you know, last week, July 9th, they updated their CDC guidance. Also in the midst of that, there was a time when Pennsylvania moved their masking mandate from more restrictive to less restrictive, with Governor Wolf's plan of moving towards the 70% or the June 28th deadline as far as removing that masking deadline. So we had a lot of moving parts with that, but the plan was developed, was put into place, and what the plan also did, and very similar to what we've done in the past, we've tried to be extremely transparent and tried to take as much input from the community as possible. is to push that information out then to the community and solicit information so that we could hear that. Going into it, I had the impression that as we developed this, that as we pushed the information out and got the input from our community, that we would come to a point where we would need to make recommendations and revisions to the plan, which that was built into last year's plan as well. So as you know, as we approached last year, we put a plan in place. As guidance changed, as mandates changed, as different things changed, and were brought down to how the schoolhouse operates, we were required to update our health and safety plan. Last year, I think we made three different updates throughout the course of the school year to our health and safety plan, just to align it to the current practice. So as I mentioned there, the CDC recently updated their guidance on July 9th. So the next slide there will show, next slide. There you go, thank you. It's a little delay. Does show the changes that the CDC had to their updated recommendations. And as we review through that list, the CDC changes and their recommendations added information about offering and promoting vaccination programs. So you'll notice in our plan, that was already addressed. So even using the May 15th CDC guidance, we also had that into our plan, just a forecast, knowing that that was something that we'd actually started at the beginning of, or in the middle of this year, offering vaccine programs to our students and also to our staff. Also, part of the changes were an emphasized need to monitor the transmission rates, vaccine coverage, and also screening. That is also already built into our plan. That is something that, as we went through this past school year, as far as monitoring rates, one of the things that I get on a daily basis that the community is able to get as well. You may not track it as closely as what I did. I went a little crazy with it, but just updating the number of cases in Allegheny County specific to our 3 boroughs, maintaining a spreadsheet just to track and monitor the spread within our local community, and then also just keeping updates on age groups and the infection rates across Allegheny County as well. And as I gave in my last month's report, just noticing those trends since the whole year, as far as the trends, as far as the transmissions and how they peaked at one point, and then they've significantly dropped off here in the month of June to the point where Allegheny County is giving their updates either every 48 hours or every 72 hours as far as pushing that information out. So that we also have embedded into our plan that we had currently practiced. Implementing layers of protection and strategically taking a look at those and removing layers as we see necessary. We've done that already. It's implemented in the plan. Maintaining the 3 feet physical distancing while other layers in place. Those are things we also had in place in last year's plan as well. The next 2, however, they updated their guidance on fully vaccinated individuals, and they also updated their guidance on the wearing of masks. That aspect of the CDC update was not included in our plan, and that's what I wanted to discuss here this evening. And the final thing that they updated there was the safety precautions for staff members. That's something that we've also embedded into our plan already. So the next slide gives a little bit of feedback from what the community provided to us. There were several questions in there that asked for holistic type of feedback. That was the Likert scale rating of the 1 to 5 rating, either strongly disagree to strongly agree. And the data, what it gleaned in those regard, and that was based on the second slide that I had up there, on the major aspects of the plan. 80 to 90% of the respondents there rated the overall major aspects of the plan with either a 4 or 5, which is a very strong indication to indicate that there's strong agreement with the level of strategies and mitigation procedures that we put in place. 10 to 15% rated it with a 3, and then we have 1 to 3% of people that rated it as a 1 or a 2. Majority of the comments, as we received that, I would say about a third of the people, 30 to 33% left a comment. Pretty much all of those comments, the large majority of those comments, were related either to vaccine or mask. A total of 222 families responded. Some people responded more than once. Those responses were gone through and removed. So it was anywhere between 25 to 27% of our families responded to the survey. Approximately 144 students at the junior senior high school were represented in the survey, and approximately 214 elementary students were in the survey. One of the things that we didn't do, that we did in the past, was we asked parents to fill out multiple surveys for each one of their children. We didn't want to go to that depth, just to make sure that we made it manageable for people to give us feedback. So when you take a look at those numbers, and question, well, how do you know that was 144 junior, senior high school students? Because some people have 3 kids. They would have indicated that they had multiple buildings. So I took, it's probably within an average, a range of plus or minus 2% off of that. Just based on those responses, I pulled the data out, added those responses in, duplicated to take a look across the board just to find out where that balance was. So it was pretty well represented there. 25 to 27% response rate. It's not the greatest, but nonetheless does give us a little bit of feedback to move forward with. With the next slide, gets a little bit more into the details, specifically asking about masks, because certainly that was a point that I think we all recognize, that masking and vaccines are an issue, not just here at Carlinton, not just in Allegheny County, but across the United States, really across the world, as far as what the philosophies and theories are with masking. So we did want to make sure that we asked some questions that probed specifically in on masking, what the comfort levels were. They have changed. We offered a survey also out, just for your knowledge, of those students who were attending our summer program. If you followed the board meeting in June, one of the things we talked about was on June 28th, when the mask mandate was lifted, what should we do about our summer programming? Should we lift the mask mandate for our summer programming? What was requested at that time was we put out a survey. We did that, and it was just a finite number of students and families who were just attending our summer programming. That data suggested it was much more heavy leaning towards that individuals attending our summer program they requested that their child continue to wear a mask while they were in the summer programs. So we wanted to fine-tune that down. These numbers are, I would say, more in favor of not having children wear masks in school than what we received in that first survey that we sent out to students in our summer program. So the data there, you can see it, 75%, this is at the high school level, 75% would prefer their child not to wear a mask. 86% were comfortable sending their child to school knowing that others in the building would not be wearing a mask. And then wanted to get a good feel on vaccine rates. Was 57% of the respondents indicated their child was vaccinated. Again, the way I extrapolated the data, it's not an exact science there in the 57%, but again, it gives a ballpark. Elementary level data, naturally it declines a little bit more. A lot of the comments aligned with vaccine not being available to elementary students. So the numbers decreased a little bit there. 60% preferred their child to wear a mask, 77% were comfortable sending their child with others who are not wearing masks. And a lot of comments there in regard to children and the way that they're interacting with others over the summer, that they are in unmasked areas with a lot of people. In many of those cases, it's outside. So some of the comments talked about outdoor usage versus indoor usage. Children associating with members of a certain pod outside of school, working with a finite group of friends and family, as opposed to coming into the schoolhouse where it's larger groups of students at a time, especially in larger congregated areas and so on. Indicated that 14% indicated that the child was vaccinated. Running the numbers on that, it seems a little inflated based on our numbers and knowing that the vaccine is only available to 12 and above. So that number, I believe, is inflated a little, but nonetheless, we took a look to say, hey, if the vaccine becomes available to individuals under the age of 12, would you be interested in getting your child vaccinated? So from there, it showed that an additional 40% of individuals would be interested in having their child vaccinated. That would bring our numbers up, when you add those together, 54%, which would be close to the high school population that reported back at 57%. That kind of makes sense because we're dealing with families. If families opted to have their child who was above 12 to be vaccinated, you'd also assume then that they would probably want to have their child that's below 12 to be vaccinated as well. So looking at it from that perspective, the numbers kind of, they lined up in that regard. So based on the information, based on what was shared from the survey data and coming back, we did discuss, I shared the information with the board was able to read through comments, the board was able to read through just very raw data that I shared there with you as well. and had the discussion in regard to changing the health and safety plan as is that's on the board agenda tonight. So coming with the recommendation, and one thing that I did omit as far as mask wearing, I believe it is in the health and safety plan, but there's still a federal mandate out there that masks must be worn on all public transportation. So when you fly and you go on a PAT bus or anything like that, you're mandated to wear a mask. That mask wearing mandate also translates down to school buses as well. So it is required, it's a federal law, and I believe that runs at least through September.
In September, I believe the 13th is the date that it's scheduled to expire. Whether it does or not remains to be seen.
Right. So as we design this, as always, we need to make sure that we're tending to any type of federal law or state law. We need to make sure we have in our plan. So mask wearing, regardless, is definitely required on school buses. Due to the comments, the vaccine being available to students above the age of 12 below, that's kind of nice natural split for us as far as elementary and high school. What we look at then is at the high school level, we're aligning that recommendation then with the most current CDC guidance, and that is to say that masks are recommended for those who are not fully vaccinated. So if you're not fully vaccinated and you're at the high school level, we recommend that you wear a mask. It's not a requirement, but we recommend it. It won't be policed hard. But the guidance says that we need to put a plan in place that is most practicable for us to implement. So going with that recommendation then aligns with the CDC guidance that is out there right now. Knowing that our population of elementary students are below the age of 12 and not having the vaccine available to them, we are making the requirement of elementary students to wear a mask. And then as far as the elementary staff members, the difference there, elementary staff members, a high percentage of our staff is vaccinated. You have staff members then working and interacting with children. I think many of you know that the data and the information that has been released about COVID, it changes by the day and it changes by whoever's going to publish it. So it's a challenge to really figure out what is fact, what is not, what is really the best recommendation and guidance. Our role as district leaders and as a school board is to look out for the safety and well-being of our children. So from that vantage point, for our staff, we do know that many of them are vaccinated, but we will make the strong recommendation that our staff, if they're interacting with our children and they're within 6 feet, that they wear a mask. Those would be the recommendations that we would put forward to make modifications to the plan that we currently have on the board or on the agenda this evening. And the reason that Mr. Shriver delayed the public comment naturally was just to hear your feedback. I know there are a few that are set up to discuss that. Regardless of whether or not that changes the public comment that you were going to make, I think it's still important that we do hear from you. And I think I can speak for the entire board. We appreciate you coming out. It's always nice to see people here at our board meetings. Reese made that one of his center points of his graduation speech, to push people to get involved because we do value it and it is important. So at this time, if you'd like to hear from the public or if we want to hear any board comments based on those recommendations, I'll turn it.
We can turn to the public. We have the sign-up sheet from folks that signed up, and the first one is Tina Ingleton.
Can I need to take a few minutes and think about, this changes my whole presentation, so.
Absolutely, yeah.
For the better, but I just need to review what I
Absolutely.
wanted to present and think about it. Is that okay?
Absolutely, we'll
Okay,
circle back
thank
at the end. Lisa Smith.
Hi. So I appreciate the fact that you guys are updating and that you changed your minds about the high school. But I don't think that the elementary school should be wearing masks. In the very last 3 months, there's been, in our district, there's been no deaths, no hospitalizations. Yes, there have been people who have gotten COVID, Nobody's been hospitalized, nobody's died, and it's not the younger kids. And the younger kids need that interaction. They lost so much last year, I don't think they need to lose anymore. They need to be mask-free, they need to be able to talk to one another, and they need to be able to see one another. Number two, they're not wearing the masks correctly either. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I drive school bus, I drive for the district. I see how the kids are wearing their masks when they get on my bus. I see how they're wearing them on the bus. I see how they come out of the building onto my bus. They got them hanging like this. They've got them down here when they're talking. And all summer long, they've been in buildings, they've been in restaurants, they've been in the malls, they've been everywhere with no masks. I don't think they need to wear masks. My other comment was with gym. This whole idea with gym, not changing your clothes for gym, going outside in the heat, sweating, and then coming back in and going to class. I don't know how the teachers deal with it, because I know what these kids smell like by the time they get on my bus. You're talking about your personal hygiene, that is so unhygienic, not to have these kids changing for gym, going outside and sweating, and then that leads open to ridicule as well, because then these kids smell. If you're gonna have gym class, you do gym class the right way. There's absolutely no reason not to have gym.
Thank you, Lisa. I'll turn to Dr. Kreger. Is there, I don't know if the administrator has thought about physical education for the fall. Is that something that can be looked at?
It can be looked at and further examined. As we started the presentation with, we're required to revisit this plan every 6 months. I think we revisit the plan much more often than that. I think that is an area that the one recommendation is to remove layers. And so as we start to take a look at layers, one of the things that I started to take a look at is, okay, if we started to remove layers, what would some of those layers be? I think physical education, changing in the locker room, those kind of things, those could be layers that could be removed very early. This is also something we could collect more information on in August, so prior to the start of school. We could make changes to any aspects of the plan as well. I think it's kind of good that we start to share things early, so we start to get more of that feedback, because as parents, you hear rumors as far as what next school year is going to look at, when we lay it out. That's why I wanted to make the plan as specific as possible. When you look at some other plans that are out there, some things they're written very vague, and so that the district has a little bit of latitude to move and to change. I think the more specific we write things gives parents more information and more of the ability to question and say, hey, could you consider this, please? So I think you know me well enough, I think you know the board well enough. Yes, I think that's an area that we can definitely consider.
Next on the list is Reese Smith.
Okay, so I was skimming through the plan that's attached to the agenda on the board docs. I saw no mention of lockers. Are you guys going to let kids use their lockers this year or no?
You know, I saw a comment, well actually it was there too, I saw lockers in gym, I said that's got to be Reese, because I do remember the lockers, and I think I was part of your graduation speech as well. I don't have an issue with letting kids go to the locker this year. So it's not specifically outlined in the plan. Last year it was specifically outlined in the plan, this year it's not. So it does give us a latitude. I don't see any issues with issuing lockers to students.
Okay, that's good.
That'll take the
And furthermore, with the, I'd like to speak a little bit more about the changing in the gyms. Again, like, we really have to have kids changing in gym class. If you look last year, like, honestly, everyone just took gym as a joke last year, more so than usual. No one really participated in gym. You know, a lot of these kids, they're wearing clothes that are not fit for gym at all. You really can't do the full amount of gym exercising and workout. And then, you know, if you have gym the last period, okay, you get stinky, you go home. But if you have gym first period, you can't have gym first period 3 days a week and smell horrible. Like, if you're a kid, you're gonna say, I don't wanna smell horrible and be sweaty all day. I'm going to just not participate in gym. And then at that point, you essentially make gym redundant by not having the kids participating in gym. And then, furthermore, with the fact that there's, in the outline of the plan, it says that there's still going to be an option to be remote. So students have the option to be remote. and you're making the conscious choice to come in and participate in schooling, I think it's not much to ask that you change for gym, or at least be given the opportunity to change for gym. You know, some kids don't change for gym already, so I doubt it really makes much of a difference to them, but there are a lot of kids that do change for gym, and I'm sure there's a lot of kids that would like to change for gym. I know personally, last year I had a gym, but in the 11th grade I took 2, so I dropped the 12th grade gym because I wasn't able to change. If I would have been able to change, I would have taken that gym. So that's just food for thought. As well, I was looking on the CDC website in the discussion of transmission from surfaces. It says it's generally a low transmission from surface to surface, and when it is, it's usually like direct sick people coughing on things, you touching it, and then you touching your face, when there is transmission via surface. And so, as long as kids aren't coughing on each other's lockers and coughing on each other's clothes, you're for the most part going to be completely fine changing for gym. But that's just my input.
Yeah, I think that's all good feedback. The transmission, especially with the surface type of pickup, I think that early on, that was questioned pretty strongly to say, hey, is this really a thing? And I thought where you were going to go with was the cleaning aspects and wiping off the desks. We left the wiping off the desks and the general upkeep in cleaning just based off of, we started that at the elementary the year before COVID hit. Kids were accustomed to wiping down their desks. We moved it up to the high school. And I think it just adds it may be something we keep forever. It's have that option in there, you know, for kids to clean off their own desk, because it's a little bit more sanitary. When you come in and you sit at someone else's desk where they work, you don't know what they were doing. So that's another, I wasn't sure if that's where you're going with it though.
No, but if you are going to keep the wet wipes, keep dry paper towels as well. Because let me tell you, some of those wet wipes, they get so wet, you wipe down your desk and then your desk is just completely soaked in water. You sit down, you get all your clothes wet. Keep dry paper towels as well.
Your shirt's full.
We'll do that.
Right? Good feedback, thank you.
Okay.
Are there others in the public that would like to comment or ask questions about agenda items? None.
Yeah.
Timo.
Yeah, I'm going to refrain from any of my comments and the research that I've done about masks, but I do want to ask, can we talk about the plexiglass? Do you have a plan for removing the plexiglass now that we're down to the 3 feet? I know that my boys' feedback was they would talk around it and then get scolded for it, so there really wasn't much communicating, and that's a time for the kids to be together and really let loose and have conversations, fun conversations with their classmates. So can we consider removing the plexiglass?
Well, everything can be considered, yes. And again, going back to the removing of the layers types of thing, it's possible we get into September and we may have to go in the other direction. But nonetheless, we have to keep into perspective where the layers that we can remove and which ones are we not. The plexiglass, I think it adds an extra layer of protection. I do agree that it's not always used the way it should be, because I've been in lunchrooms this past year, and you do get, no matter where you go to order pizza, and the guy slips underneath and he takes his mask down to talk to the people. It's the same kind of thing in the schoolhouse too, where the plexiglass isn't always good concept. When you put it into practice, doesn't always work out as well as you think it should. But that's a layer that we can certainly consider. There are some areas of our district where we need to remove those plexiglass barriers in the evening to prepare for other events, which is a bit time consuming and difficult to do, but we did leave it on here in the beginning, just as that extra layer, but it can be considered. I would like to hear your research on the mask though sometime. Appreciate that.
Well, if you decide to put masks back on, I'll be back.
Okay, all right.
I have a lot of research here, so I will share it with you.
All right, well, I don't want to make it feel like you wasted your time. Thank you.
Any other public comments on agenda items before we move on? Any board comments on the health and safety plan? Yeah, okay. Let's move on. Under section 2 of our agenda, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the voting meeting on June 22nd, 2021.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Under section 3, I'll report that we had an executive session prior to this meeting where we talked about personnel and student matters. I'll now turn to Dr. Kreger to see if there's any other superintendent report items.
Nothing else.
Nothing else? Okay. Moving on, committee reports. Director Asher, anything to share about Parkway West?
Thanks, yeah, real briefly, we had our July board meeting via Zoom. And pretty quick meeting, but interestingly, attendance for next year looks like it's up, which is great. The director out there, Darby Copeland, has the hope of it getting into 4 figures as far as enrollment out there, which we haven't seen since I think the early 80s. And Parkway West continues to be one of the larger CTCs in Western PA. So I think that that gives you an example or an idea of just how responsive we've been out there for coming up with programs that kids are interested in. And I also think that the value of a career education is becoming really apparent for us. So that's all I have.
Good stuff. Thank you. Director Hunshar, any update on Pathfinder?
Jim, we at Pathfinder don't have board meetings in July, but I'll just reiterate what I said last time. The state has allowed the kids, the graduating kids, to come back for another year because of what they had lost because of COVID. And of our 17 graduates, 10 will be coming back. But that's from last month's report.
Thank you. Director Zalewski, any update on Shasbury? Okay, thank you. And we'll wait to hear from Director Simzik at our next meeting about PSBA and the foundation, unless Dr. Kreger has anything.
There was no foundation meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Moving on to section 4 of our meeting agenda, we have 2 items. I'll entertain a motion to approve number 1, the 2021-2022 Health and Safety Plan for the Carleton School District as submitted and as revised by Dr. Kreger with his comments regarding masks not being required at the high school. And also number 2, the 2021 and 2022 conference and field trip list as submitted. So that's a motion for those 2 items.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Under section 5, finance, we have 10 items. I'll entertain a motion to approve, number 1, the treasurer's report for the month of June 2021 as submitted. Number 2, the bills for the month of June 2021 in the amount of $885,272.84. Number 3, motion to move all but 8% of the general fund balance to an assigned fund balance for the 2021-2022 school year for future expenditures related to PESers, healthcare benefits, and building renovations, retroactive to June 30th, 2021, as directed by the auditors. Number 4, to award bids for athletic supplies for the 2021-22 school year in the total amount of $49,703.91. Number 5, to approve and authorize VEBH Architects to move forward with bid documents for the Crafton Elementary School window and door replacement project was submitted. Number 6, to approve the 2021-22 agreement for educational services between the district and the Bradley Center for Student Enrollment and Psychological Services. Number 7, the agreement with Allegheny Clinic for extended school year services provided under the Behavioral Health Professional Services Agreement in the amount of $8,000. Number 8, to approve the contract of service between the district and PA educator of the Allegheny Intermediate Unit at an annual cost of $1,500. Number 9, the athletic fund report for the month of June 2021 with an ending balance of $5,813.35. And number 10, to approve the activities fund report for the month of April 2021 with an ending balance of $92,716.96. Do I have a motion for those 10 items?
I so move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Motion carries. Section 6, personnel, we have 15 items. Let's split it up into 2 groups if we can. I'll entertain a motion to do numbers 1 through 7. So, number 1, to approve the additions to the 2021-22 athletic supplemental list with new and returning coaches. The stipends for the supplemental position holders are contingent upon completion of the full school year and will be prorated in the event of a shortened or canceled season due to unforeseen circumstances. Number 2, to approve the additions to the 2021-22 activity supplemental list with new sponsors and instructors. The stipends for the supplemental position holders are also contingent upon completion of the full school year and will be prorated in the event of a shortened or canceled season due to unforeseen circumstances. Number 3, to approve the addition to the 2021-22 curriculum coordinator list. The stipend for the supplemental position holders are contingent upon completion of the full school year and will be prorated in the event of a shortened or canceled season due to unforeseen circumstances. Number 4, to accept the letter of resignation as submitted by music choral teacher Rebecca Chanette, effective immediately. Number 5, letter of retirement, to accept the letter of intent to retire as submitted by Pupil Services Secretary Marjorie Ruffin, effective June 29th, 2021, for the terms of the Secretariat Cafeteria Aides Collective Bargaining Unit Agreement. Number 6, to accept the letter of intent to retire as submitted by Kimberly Holdcroft, Assistant to the Director of Finance and Accounts Payable Secretary, effective October 1st, 2021, per the terms of the Act 93 contract agreement. Number 7, to rescind the letter of intent to retire as submitted and approved on May 18th, 2021 by Confidential Administrative and Board Secretary, Public Relations Coordinator Michelle Herman, and to approve a salary increase to $55,000 retroactive to July 1st, 2021. Do I have a motion for those 7 items under Section 6?
Second.
Moved and second. Thank you. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The second group under Section 6, I'll entertain a motion to approve number 8, to approve Kim Fritzius as a certified ESL teacher for the district's summer school programming as needed for the period of July 7th through July 23rd, 2021, at a stipend of $2,400. Number 9, to accept the letter of resignation from Cheryl Irwin from the position of support aide to the Session 2 of the Summer Art Explosion Program held at Crafton Elementary School, effective immediately. Number 10, to accept the letter of resignation from Christina Foley from the position of support aide to Session 2 of the Summer Academic Programming and Session 2 of the Summer Art Explosion Program held at Crafton Elementary School, effective immediately. Number 11, to accept the letter of resignation from custodian Steve Gable, effective July 23rd, 2021. And number 12, to accept the letter of resignation from registrar Jennifer Alexa, effective July 30th, 2021. Number 13, to approve Anna Marie Hughes for the position of general cafeteria worker at Crafton Elementary School during the school year and the hours of 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the hourly rate per the terms of the Secretariat Cafeteria Aides Collective Bargaining Unit Agreement. Number 14, to approve Joanne Jerzak for the position of general cafeteria worker at Carnegie Elementary School during the school year and the hours of 7:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. at the hourly rate per the terms of the SCA Collective Bargaining Unit Agreement. And lastly, number 15, to approve Chris Trombetta for the position of support aide to Session 2 of the summer academic programming held at Crafton Elementary School beginning July 14th through July 23rd, 2021, per diem rate per the terms of the SCA Collective Bargaining Unit Agreement. I have a motion for items 8 through 15 in Section 6.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, thank you. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Section 7, Policy Services. I'll entertain a motion to approve the first reading of the revisions and updates to policies number 146.1, 150, 203, 209, 220, 247, 249, and 252 as submitted. Do I have a motion for that item?
So moved.
Moved and seconded, thank you. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Old business. Any director of any old business they would like to bring up tonight? If not, new business. Any director of any new business they'd like to bring up? Okay. Open forum. Anyone in the public have open forum questions? Ms. Smith?
I know, I'm so much. Okay, one, I want to know, did you guys find anybody in the school district that was going to do anything with transportation? Did you hire anybody for that yet?
We did,
You did?
yes.
Did we get to know who or no?
Yeah, it was approved, public meeting. Mr. McDade will be running the routing for the district.
Okay, and I can't remember what the other one was.
Okay. Anyone else have any open forum questions for the board? If none, we'll move to the board. Any board member have any open questions, open forum questions? Hearing none, I would move to what is normally Maurice's favorite part of the meeting, but all those in favor of ending the meeting? Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you. Thank you for coming.